You're back with us on America's Forum. I'm J.D. Hayworth. To politics. Tea Party-backed candidate Ben Sasse won the GOP Senate primary yesterday in Nebraska. The victory by Sasse follows a heated and expensive primary battle that received national attention. The university president beat out former state treasurer Shane Osborne and Sid Dinsdale. Sasse, who you see here, took home 49% of the vote, and now he moves into November's general election. Joining us now, Republican strategist Ford O'Connell. Ford, we welcome you back to America's Forum. Thanks for Skyping in to be a part of our program today.
Well, thank you for having me, JD. It's always a pleasure.
So last week, the pundits were talking about the triumph of the establishment in North Carolina. Now it's the Tea Party in Nebraska. Now, to be certain, there are some, dare I call them, subtleties or distinctions to each of this race. But what does this Tea Party triumph mean for the GOP as a whole?
To be perfectly honest with you, JD, I just don't focus on Tea Party versus establishment. I focus on the candidate and the environment they're running in. And I think overall with Sasse, I think the Republican Party might have gotten itself a gem, a serious conservative who wants to be a problem solver. Somebody a little bit like Senator Coburn out of Oklahoma. I think they might have actually landed themselves a great future senator.
Well, we understand the need for party unity, and yet we would, and I appreciate that most politic answer from a political consultant. I understand the necessity of unity, but now that I'm on this side of it, not as a candidate or as a party official, but as someone talking about the issues today, there continues to be a divide, maybe several within the Republican Party, but it has been boiled down in the press to Tea Party versus establishment. So, I guess simplistically you can say, oh, we'll chalk one up for the establishment in North Carolina, chalk up a victory for the Tea Party in Nebraska, and there will be those who will say, well, there's another incumbent who won a Republican primary in West Virginia in Shelley Moore Capito, who people might say lends more credibility to the, quote, establishment. But is it just going to take the finality of a primary, once these things are finally decided across the states with different primaries on different dates, that will be the time when unity will break out within the Republican Party?
I absolutely think so, JD. One is because the political trade winds merit it. There's so much in the Republicans' favor, and really the issues that all the candidates are touting are really ones of unity with respect to growth, jobs, Obamacare, energy security, et cetera. So I don't think they're really that far apart on the issues. I think they're a little bit farther apart on how they go about solving those problems. But overall, it's really the political trade winds merit basically every candidate being a team player, because right now the Republicans can make a lot of gains. And if you don't make gains, we're only going to get run over by the Democrats in Congress. You know that, JD.
Well, one of those leading the Republicans, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, facing a primary here in just a matter of days. You have that situation. You also had Mitch McConnell, and much was made of, for lack of a better term, kind of a personality conflict between the Senate Republican leader and Ben Sasse when he paid a visit to Washington. Now, of course, Sasse says, hey, look, happy to work with the leader, happy to work with the Republican conference when I get to Washington as a U.S. Senator. But taking a look at Mitch's race right now with Matt Bevin, how do you handicap that thing? Do the resources that the minority leader can bring to bear in the bluegrass state make him a lock in that coming primary there?
I absolutely think he's a lock, and part of it is, as you notice, you don't hear a lot of Tea Party activists talking about Bevin because basically he was a flop, and that's where we go back to electable candidates. Bevin on paper looked like a good idea till you vetted down, drilled down a little bit, and now you recognize, Mitch McConnell may not be your favorite, but he's your best opportunity to make sure the Republicans control the Senate in 2014. And frankly, he's going to have a tough contest in the general election after he wins the primary against Allison Lundgren Grimes. But right now, she's not running a great campaign. So I don't see where the Democrats are going to really knock off a Republican in terms of picking up open seats, except maybe in Iowa or possibly in Georgia.
Well, we talk about what is going on in the Republican Party, we would be remiss if we did not chronicle what is transpiring with the Democrats. Now, for the Dems yesterday, my old colleague, John Conyers, who is the most senior member of Congress running for re-election since John Dingell is retired, apparently he failed to qualify for the primary ballot. And Ed Janney, who is the Democrats' choice candidate for a Florida House race, dropped out. So all the talk about the schism in the Republican Party, are the Dems in disarray when it comes to the midterms?
I think the better way to say that is that the Democrats right now are being lazy. All hands are on deck for the Senate, holding the Senate, and they really can't focus on much else except for the Senate and a couple of governor's seats that they could possibly pick up in the midterms. They're not watching their backside. This is what happens when you become a party really trying to defend something. And essentially, they got lazy. Now with Conyers, you know he's been there since 1965. He very well will likely win as a write-in candidate. As for Janney in Florida 13, that was a Hail Mary where they tried to go long and they got burned. And right now, David Jolly's going to walk right back into basically what will be a second term.
Well, we take a look, and the midterms obviously are important. And in our first hour, my friend Rick Santorum was here with us. And of course, he was saying all the right things about, hey, look, we got the midterms this year. And he said, I believe, quote, I'm leaving the door open with regards to 2016. Now, another one of my former colleagues, Bobby Jindal, now the governor of Louisiana, and of course, Bobby Jindal first came to public policy fame running health care in Louisiana for a Republican governor. Now Governor Jindal has slammed Hillary Clinton for supporting the individual mandate of Obamacare when 2 decades ago she testified against the notion of an individual mandate. What do you make of this attack from Jindal coming in an op-ed that he authored for Politico? Is this a sign that Bobby is gearing up for 2016?
Well, Bobby certainly wants to be in the conversation, whether as a president or as a vice presidential candidate. But you're going to notice a very interesting formula going on here with everybody who's basically eyeing 2016. Pounce on Hillary Clinton and then provide a solution or a vision to a pressing problem. And what he's provided there is America Next, which he believes is a possible health care solution to Obamacare. So Bobby Jindal knows exactly what he's doing. This is a formulaic way to do it because guess what? The Republican Party really dislikes Hillary Clinton, and now he's painted her as a flip-flopper. Boy, it's shades of Mitt Romney coming back in reverse from the Democratic Party.
Well, Ford, we would be remiss if we did not continue with Hillary and the stories and the reaction to the former First Lady, former Secretary of State, former United States Senator from New York. A fellow consultant, Karl Rove, lecturing last week, talked about, he's since denied that he was saying that Hillary had brain damage. He's walked that back. Newt Gingrich has taken exception to what Karl Rove had to say and I guess issued a rhetorical blast at what he calls the GOP consultant class. Gee, I wonder if that includes a guy named Ford. Anyway, you have that going on. Your take on the Karl Rove situation and the scrutiny to Hillary Clinton's health as we are gearing up for 2016.
Well, the Rove statement is a little bit of he said, she said, but he's actually hit on a very fair point, and that is the health of a future presidential candidate. It's going to be in question. We all know that these documents are asked for, particularly scrutinized heavily by the New York Times. The thing with Hillary Clinton is it's right now a very radioactive issue because of what Karl said, or how at least was perceived in the mainstream media. But we have to be very careful about how we bring up questions of age, her bedroom, and her health, because you're going to draw undue sympathy among unmarried women. But this is a legitimate question that Karl is raising, maybe not necessarily in a legitimate fashion, and it's fodder for the mainstream media, but it's something that the American people need to know about. One of my former bosses, John McCain, got questioned by this scrutiny and by this age issue. And really, Hillary Clinton's going to have to answer that question one way or the other. That my thing for the Republicans is don't be a flamethrower when bringing this question up.
Gee, and it just makes me wonder, since Karl took such strong exception to some conservative candidates for the U.S. Senate and the way they said things, gee, would Karl disqualify himself for making public statements. Well, I doubt that, but he tried to explain that. About 30 seconds before we go, Newt hopping on board to take offense with this and take a shot at the GOP consultant class. You got to take on Newt or a comeback on that?
You know, I really love Newt Gingrich. I think he's probably the best secretary for the Republican Party in history. He's a very smart guy. The problem with Newt is Newt's own worst enemy is usually Newt himself. And one of these things is Newt, I think, is probably getting even for some of the knocks he took in his 2012 merry-go-round. But again, I have tremendous respect for Newt Gingrich. But sometimes, you know, people like to hit back for where they got hit in the past.
Well, I understand, and at times I perhaps resemble that remark. Ford O'Connell, we thank you so much for your input and your take as part of DC's consultant class. We look forward to having you back. So what is your take on that controversy? We'd love to hear from you here, and we'll be back on America's Forum.